Welcome to the San Gorgonio chapter's Trail Talk. My name is John St. Clair, and I will be your Zoom host today. And as the Zoom host, I'll go over some ground rules and some background. First of all, everybody should be muted, except for the speakers, of course. And stay muted the whole time. If you have questions, there's a little talking bubble icon down at the bottom of your screen next to the word chat. And if you click on that, it opens up the chat window. And the default is to send a chat to everyone, and you can do that. And just type your questions there. And Julianne and I will be monitoring that, and we can relay questions to our speaker, Marianne. So tonight's topic is outdoor photography, and Marianne Ruiz is the speaker, and she's going to be giving us lots of information about taking photographs in the outdoors. Next month's Trail Talk is titled Debunking Wildfire in California's Forests, and Chad Hansen, PhD, who's a Big Bear City ecologist with the John Muir Project and a Sierra Club member, will be giving that talk, and that will be on January 19th. It's always on the third Wednesday at 7 p.m. So January 19th is the third Wednesday of January, and Chad will give us information about wildfires in California's forests. So if you just remember to put your questions in the chat, we will relay those to Marianne. And then when she's done with her slideshow and talk, at that point, you can unmute and ask questions if you want. But until then, please stay muted. And this is being recorded. And when it's over, I will upload the recording to the San Gorgonio chapter YouTube channel. And I sent out a reminder email to everyone. And if you didn't see it and you're here, it went to your spam folder. Take a look, because in that reminder email is the link to the San Gorgonio chapter YouTube channel. And it has all of our trail talks on there. I will have this one posted within 24 hours, and maybe even tonight, depending on how energetic I am. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to, let's see, let me remove my spotlight and put the spotlight on Julianne. And Julianne, who is one of the members of the Trail Talk Committee, will have the job of introducing our speaker.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. Before I introduce our speaker, Marianne Ruiz, I would like to kind of tie her talk in to our February Trail Talk, which is also photographically oriented. Photographer QT Long, who has just this past month published just a stunning book on the national monuments, will be our speaker in February. So I think it's kind of nice to have Marianne talking about basics of nature photography and her experience. And then maybe we can keep that in mind when we have Mr. Long talking about his landscapes and his book that's just come out, which I highly recommend. I mean, frankly, it would make a great holiday book. It's beautiful. And he's done one about 5 years ago on the national parks, and they're just beautiful, beautiful things. So great to have Marianne talking about photography and her experience. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce her properly. Marianne Ruiz grew up camping and backpacking with her family, leading to a lifelong interest in nature and nature photography. Appreciating professional photographers' work led her to learn more, including joining them for photo workshops. Retirement has allowed Marianne to pursue this interest, which combines well with hiking, nature travel, and birding. She currently serves as the chair of our chapter here, the San Gorgonio chapter, as well as chair of the Sierra Club California Executive Board. So all hail Marianne, and thank you so much for joining us and for presenting tonight. And with that, I send it to you.
Well, thank you, Julianne, and welcome everybody. I am going to share some slides tonight and some of my experiences, as Julianne said. First off, I am not a pro. I don't have the fanciest equipment, but I do enjoy it. And I think one of the pro photographers that really impressed me was Mr. Long, who's presenting in February. So I really am looking forward to that. So I'm going to go ahead and start with some slides here and share my screen. And since I am the chair of Sierra Club San Gregorio chapter and Sierra Club California, I do just have to do, a bit of a plug here for Sierra Club and the things that we do. Our chapter is all of Riverside and San Bernardino counties. We cover deserts, mountains, and inland urban valleys. I just want to let folks know that we do have some outings starting up soon, and be sure to check our website. Maybe Julianne or John can put that into the chat. And a couple of important things are happening right now. Just today, the California Natural Resources Agency put out their draft strategy plan to reach 30 by 30, which is 30% of our land in California protected by 2030. And this is a proclamation the governor made last year. So we've been working on this for a year to put input into this draft strategy. And it came out today. It was announced, and we have a bunch of people that will be reviewing it. It's like a 50-page document to make comments on it. And it's an opportunity to get involved in looking at places that you think deserve protection and figuring out what we can do to protect them. So, and the other part of that is the Outdoors for All initiative that the governor announced, I believe, last week. And it was an over $500 million investment in our parks, our recreation, and especially in underserved communities, in increasing access to nature. So these are two really exciting things that are happening that I hope folks might have some interest in. And if you would like to see how you could help or get involved, just put your name in the chat and we will we'll get back with you on that. So I just wanted to go through that real quick. We'll get into our photo slideshow here. And I just wanted to kind of let folks think a little bit about how photography has entered our life in such a daily, it's part of our daily lives. We take pictures every day of, maybe our food, our pets, our kids, where we've been, anything to just sort of document what we're doing and to show other people what we're doing. Everybody's trying to get that perfect picture for Instagram and maybe show off that they've been here or there. The cell phone cameras have pretty much replaced the old point and shoot cameras that we used to buy, the little square ones that you could take a digital picture with and then download it to your computer and then share it somehow or other or print it. Now you can just take pictures every day. The newer ones are almost like a professional camera. They are getting better and better. I'm going to advance the slide here. They're getting better and better, and you can do a lot of things with them. You can add a lens, a zoom lens to zoom in even farther than the zoom on your phone camera. You can add wide angle or a close-up lens, macro lens. So some people might think, well, why even use a DSLR camera, which is a digital single lens reflex camera where you can take off lenses and change them and have a lot more control. And that's really the reason why you would still use a DSLR. Phone cameras are great. If there's a lot of light, you can get probably just as good of a landscape photo as you can with a DSLR. You'll never quite get the clarity and the precise look that you'd get on a DSLR because the sensors aren't as big. A cell phone sensor is much smaller and it doesn't let in as much light. You don't have the control you have with a DSLR where you can, you can adjust the exposure. There are some manual functions on the newer phones. You can shoot in manual mode. You just don't have quite the same ability to control. You can even get, the slow motion water pictures where you blur the water, but that's more of a software thing than the actual camera. So we're going to go into a little bit about digital photography using a DSLR, digital single lens reflex camera, and some basics of exposure and composition that'll help you no matter what kind of a camera you're using, whether it's a cell phone or a DSLR. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about responsible nature photography, because we've all seen the pictures, especially locally here, when there's what they call a wildflower, an amazing wildflower bloom. And everybody goes out and lays in the flowers and tromps through them and destroys them and just to get that Instagram picture. So we'll talk a little bit about responsible nature photography and some of these other subjects. Oops, go back. So I was looking at one of my favorite photographers' websites because he's a big proponent of this. And that led me a while ago to the Alliance for Responsible Nature Photography. And these are kind of the credo, their principles, prioritize the well-being of nature photography. I'm not going to read through them all on this because I'm going to go through them each individually. The first one is prioritize the well-being of nature over photography. Watch where you step and who or what you impact. Stay on roads and trails and camp in designated areas. An example is deserts. Many deserts have a cryptobiotic soil crust that takes years to grow, and just stepping on it just destroys it. There's all kinds of life under there that you just don't realize is there. Wildlife can easily be disturbed and disrupted, their lives disrupted, if you are not aware of prioritizing the well-being of nature. This little teeny flower is maybe 2 or 3 inches high. If you aren't paying attention, that would be a shoe print. Instead, it's a cute little 5-spot that hasn't opened up yet. Disturbing wildlife is not a good thing. You don't want to disturb a rattlesnake by stepping someplace, and that's dangerous to you. These big rams, bighorn sheep rams, you don't want to get too close to those guys. This was with a long, lens close up from a far, far distance. They were way up on a hill, but he doesn't look too happy about me taking his picture even from that distance. Actually had no idea it was there, but I wouldn't want to mess with those guys. Oops. So the next principle, whoops, I went one too far, I think. An example of really delicate formations that are easily damaged by careless trampling is those painted hills there at the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument. This soil is just amazing to see. This is kind of a close-up. It looks a little blurry, but that's just the way the colors blur into the sand, into the soil there. But if you step out on this, it's never going to be the same. And that is an issue with photographers wanting to get that perfect shot. So don't hurt the dirt is their motto. Another one is to educate yourself about the places that you photograph. If you know a little bit about the place, know about the subject, whether it's special plants or birds, unique geology, it's more interesting for you as you're taking the picture. And you can kind of spread some knowledge around about what you're photographing. This is a picture of a riverbed in Tuolumne River along the Dana Fork, where the river's really, really low and the water is not passing over this, but when the river's high and the water's running quickly, the river just erodes these big holes in it. So just a little bit of geology or knowledge about the areas is helpful. And then this one here, paying attention to how your actions might impact. Oops, sorry. My thing is really sensitive here. I need to make this smaller. Let me move something around here so I'm not continually doing that. There we go. So no one follow. I am sorry here. Okay. Get back to reflecting on your actions, the impact of your actions. If you've got this osprey up on a dead tree with a big old fish there. If you get too close, you're going to scare him away. He might lose his lunch. So just think about what you do and how that's going to impact either the land or the wildlife. And then use discretion. This is one that is in the age of Instagram and Facebook and posting every photo you take. Something to really consider is, do I really need to share exactly where I took this picture? Artifacts like this petroglyph or sensitive areas that could be overrun because somebody posted it on Instagram and everybody else wants to be there. Think twice about that. It's very simple to say this. I saw this at Gold Buttes Mountain National Monument instead of a very specific place. And you can see that it looks like someone has already tried to chip away at these historic petroglyphs. So just use discretion when you want to share a location. Know and follow the rules. I don't know if you can read it, but that sign says proceed no further. So, don't get off the trail. Don't go any farther out into these beautiful hills. And then make sure you understand no camping, don't remove anything, no vehicles. Those kinds of regulations are important to follow, whether you're camping or for photographers. And some photographers do tend to think, well, I'm just going to step over this and take a picture. I'm not going to hurt anything. But as soon as you do that, then somebody else is going to do it. And then always follow leave no trace. I think most of us understand about leave no trace principles of making sure we're not harming the landscape and that we don't leave trash and disturb the area, and actually pick up things that somebody else has left behind. I was on a hike and this old metallic balloon was in this cat's claw bush, and our buddy Ray got in there with his gloves and his denim jacket and pulled it all out. So, and I know a lot of folks that are on this call will pick things up rather than just leave them there, even if they didn't leave them. So those are some principles of nature photography. And I thought I'd just stop it right here and see if there's any questions or comments or suggestions.
Marianne, just a couple. What's an example of a basic DSLR camera? How much can you expect to pay for just a basic model?
Well, I know that Canon, Panasonic, Sony, they all have some basic models out there. To be honest with you, I haven't priced them lately, but you can usually get a camera kit of a basic DSLR with a lens. You get a kit, a camera, a basic lens, maybe a filter or two. And, I haven't priced them for a long time. I buy used typically. I go to B&H Photo and they have a great section for used cameras and equipment. So I would just say, you'd have to look it up, but you can probably easily spend $600 or $800 for a good DSLR kit. But if you think about, if you're not concerned about used equipment, especially if you're new, find somebody that's selling one. Go to a camera club's website. Go to B&H Photo is a big photo company that sells used equipment. or I bought my last camera from my brother-in-law who was a pro, but sold me his old stuff. So I think you'd have to look that up, but you can find them. There's a lot of hobbyists that continually upgrade their equipment. So I'm sure there's a lot out there on the used market, especially if you're just starting.
Where's B&H Photo?
It's online. I don't know where they have
Mm,
it's just an online store.
got it.
And it's big. I mean, it's one of the best places for good prices on camera equipment and extensive, just a lot of variety and really good customer service help on chat. They're very helpful.
Mhm, mhm.
So from there, I'm going to move on to, exposure. With your, I imagine a lot of folks here had a point and shoot camera, and it had that little wheel you turned around that said auto, and it had some little picture of a mountain, a little picture of a flower, some other settings. And DSLR cameras have those too. They have a number of different settings. They have auto, which most folks would start with. And then they have a couple of others, and they have manual. So if we learn what those other ones are, including manual, you can go to manual shooting at some point. The basics of exposing, there's three basic things that affect the light entering your camera, and light is what it's all about with taking pictures. And every camera has an aperture, and that's the opening of your lens. There's a mechanical diaphragm in there that opens and closes to control the amount of light that's hitting the camera's sensor, or in an old camera, it would hit the film. So the size of that opening or aperture is called an f-stop. And you'll see that on your camera. You have an f5.6, f11, f18. That's the numbers are based on a mathematical formula that involves the length of the lens and the size of the opening. And it's more complicated than I want to get into tonight because I don't want to do any math. So for more light, you open the aperture, and for less, you stop it down. But that's where it gets confusing. And it took me a long time to figure this out, because the bigger the opening, the smaller the number. An f2.8 opening is the largest on some lenses. That's a really large aperture. And then you stop it down to a number like a bigger number, like f32, the smallest. So understanding that difference between the f-stops is important. And that it also affects your depth of field, which is how much of the picture is going to be in focus. How much is, a large opening concentrates the light on the item that you focused on. And so that is going to be in focus, and everything behind it is not going to be in focus. So if you look at these two pictures, this little tiny ladybug on this little tiny flower is the only thing in focus. Even some of the edges of the flower aren't really clear because the light is concentrated on that little ladybug from a very large aperture opening. And then if you look at the picture of the flowers, they're kind of all in focus from the front to the back. So that, one of the things I learned was, an easy way to remember that the difference here is that the higher the f-stop number, the more flowers are going to be in focus. So F for f-stop, flowers, and focus. That kind of helped me get past this one, which was kind of confusing. So you've got your aperture. That's one of your basics. Then the next one is your shutter speed. The shutter controls how long the light hits the sensor of your camera, and it's expressed in fractions of a second. So a really fast shutter speed, can control and stop action. Like a 1/1000 speed might be used to stop action with wildlife. You'd need a 1/5000th to stop a hummingbird's wing or something like that. And then a slow shutter can blur movement, or it can be used in really dark conditions. So this little tiny bird here, this little pine siskin, to make sure I caught him and got him in focus in case he moved or even just stirred a little bit, That one is at 1/400th of a second. And then this other quite old picture I took a long time ago of a night scene, the shutter speed was set at 30 seconds to let in enough light to be able to actually see, the stars in this little building. So that's your shutter speed. Another thing that you're slowing your shutter speed, you need a tripod. If you know you're going to have low light, or you want to use a slow shutter to get special effects like this, slowing the water down, you need a tripod. For handheld pictures, if you get slower than 1/10 of a second, you're definitely going to have blur and movement, and your picture is going to be fuzzy. If you aren't real steady like me, you get a 30th of a second, you're going to get fuzzy blurriness. But with a tripod, you can slow it way down, and you can make have effects like this, making the water look like it's constantly running. So you definitely need a tripod. It's one of the things you can do with a DSLR, little creative stuff. And then the third spoke of your exposure is your ISO, the light sensitivity of your image sensor. So if you are old enough to remember film photography, you would buy a roll of film and it would say ISO 400 or ISO 400 or 100. And so your whole roll of film would be shot at that speed, at that film speed. It was called film speed. It's really the light sensitivity of the image sensor. So the lower that ISO number, the more light you need. In a bright sunny daylight conditions, you can use an ISO 100. If you get into low light or evening or shadows and shade, you might go up to 400 or 800. Now, then you start getting into issues because as your ISO speed goes higher, you lose some of the color saturation and you gain noise. You get a grainy appearance. So it's a really balancing act for a photographer to balance these three things: aperture, the shutter, and the ISO, to work together to set the exposure. And it just takes practice. You'll learn how to use the manual settings. But one of the things you can do, if you know you want to take a close-up of something and have everything blurred in the background, you can use aperture priority. And then the camera will figure out those other two settings. Or if you want to stop action or slow action, you can use shutter priority. And then the camera will figure out the other two settings that'll best keep the light where you need it to be. So that's a good way to learn, is to start with start with auto. And then as you learn more about these different settings, try just aperture or shutter priority, and then work your way up to using manual, where you set all three on every photograph. And typically, if you're in the same area, you're not going to set all three every time, but you have that option. These cameras also come, most of the DSLRs will have on your display, you'll see a histogram. This is a picture of the way the light's hitting your camera. And it's not something we're going to go into depth on tonight because it's, kind of complicated and something you can look up as you learn more. But it is a good thing to check as you're taking your pictures. If it looks kind of like this, you're probably okay. If the way I learned how to make a quick check on this is that if you have spikes on either side at the edges, you're not going to be able to get a good picture that way. Your light, it's just not good light. But, you check that. And as I'm going to say in some other places on this talk, you need to, learn more and look these things up, but it's just a basic start here. So that's I'm going to kind of stop there again and see if anybody has any questions, or I'd also appreciate any comments from anyone that is experienced and a good photographer and has anything they'd like to add, because like I say, I'm not a pro. I'm gonna go, whoops, going the wrong way here. What's going on? Okay, here we go. Any comments or questions? Julianne, anything in the chat? No?
We are prepared to move forward. I think people are just listening intently.
Okay, well, I
And
don't feel like I'm
one
talking a
question-
lot.
One question that I would have,
Okay.
basic manuals or materials or online materials for the person that wants to approach this
Mhm.
and start learning about DSLR photography. Any favorites that you use for
Well,
photography?
my favorite was taking a couple of workshops. The one that really started me on learning how to take manual photos was a 3-day workshop. And I've got the link here to this photographer that I like. And it's just a matter of, I like this guy's work. But he has workshops. I went on a 3-day workshop in 2014 in a place that is no longer there because it burned down last year, Opal Creek Ancient Forest Wilderness. But that is a really good jump start to learning, is to take a workshop if you can do that. Other places, there's lots of online references and support. Joining a photography club, that's another thing I did early on. I actually didn't really join it. I went to a couple meetings, but I just, I think that's a good place, would be to join a local photography club.
Right.
But a lot of these pros, like Gary here that I note, he's got it on his website. He has a blog, and he's got like 17 pages of blogs that each cover a different subject. You can learn a lot that way. But I'm sure there's some classes you could take at your local community college or your local, sometimes city recreation departments have classes on this sort of thing. It just depends on how you learn and what you like to do. There's just an awful lot of resources.
I know UCR has the Museum of Photography in downtown Riverside, which is really extensive and wonderful. A lot of historic resources there. I don't know if they would be able to point, out any particular workshops or whatnot through UCR Extension, but
Mhm.
that's like quite the resource. I think didn't Ansel Adams leave his work to the UC? I think he did, and I think it may be connected through the Museum of Photography.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain of that, but something rings a bell about that.
Huh. Okay. Well, I'm going to go through these composition basics also, but before we get really into them, I'm going to tell you first just take it in. If you're out in nature, be in the moment. And unless you're a pro trying to get a specific thing for a job, just enjoy it. Be in the moment and don't be as concerned about getting the perfect picture unless you're on a specific photography outdoor experience. So take it in, appreciate it, enjoy what you're seeing. And then I'll go through each of these. I think I have a photo for each one of these little ideas, but then, we just kind of covered being curious, finding resources, find a professional you like. And sometimes they have blogs. But if you have a photographer whose work you like, check their website and see if they have information. Multi-day workshops, we kind of went through that. So we'll go on to getting it right in the camera. So, you want to get it right in the camera. Don't count on fixing it up later. You can do that. There's post-processing on your iPhone camera. And there's various post-processing places you can go to or get on the computer. Adobe Lightroom is the one I use, and where you can go in and adjust or develop your photo. But if you can get most of it right in the camera, you don't have to do all that work. And then composition is really the important thing. So you're not constantly cropping or, trying to make it better. I would call this picture just a snapshot. It's a nice scene. It's not real special though. The lighting could be a little better. And the composition is not great, but take a little minute longer and go to this one. And I think I got the light better. The clouds don't blend into the mountaintop quite as badly. The light's a little nicer. I've got something in the foreground, especially when you're taking landscape pictures, something in the foreground is helpful. And I think this is just a little bit nicer picture. It could maybe get to postcard quality. That's kind of like how I like to think about it is you've got your snapshot, you got your postcard, and then you've got art. Art is to be strived for. Then the next one was to, lead the eye of the viewer into the picture with light. So, there was this beautiful rainbow here on Mono Lake, and I took a bunch of different pictures of it, but I like this one best because you can your eye kind of goes not just to the rainbow, but through into the picture with the light in the front, and it kind of follows through to the back, or to the, the back of the scene. So thinking about the light in your photo is an important piece of your composition. And then having a few little shorebirds there in the foreground and a kind of a brightly lit grass also adds. So it's one piece of composition. Avoid too much distracted content. I was excited about this photo when I took it because it's an area I like and special place. And then I got it in and I looked at it and thought, there's just too much going on here. It's just too much. And it was distracting. It really didn't turn out as nicely as I had hoped this one would be. So don't, avoid too much distracting content. There's a thing in photography called the rule of thirds and the golden spiral. And these are both guides to taking a picture and getting things in the right place in your picture. The rule of thirds, and it's not a rule. That's the first thing I like to say is it's not a rule. It's not something you have to do. You need to be creative and make it look the way you want to. But ideally, in a picture like this, you don't put the little bird right in the very center in the picture. You kind of divide the picture horizontally and vertically into thirds, divide the frame, and put that central part of your picture in some place in the third that's not right in the center. There are times when you want to center something, when you want to give, a symmetrical picture for some reason. But when you have a main subject, it's good to kind of not put that subject right in the exact center or way over to one side or the other. You kind of think about thirds of the frame. And then the golden spiral is, I don't have a picture of it here, but it's an idea that you, again, I guess we could go back to that last one, drawing the light, drawing the eye into the light. You can look these things up online too and see more about them. And just make sure that you remember they'll be called rules, but they're not rules. They're guides to ways to compose your photo. Another thing I like to do sometimes, in landscape photography, you think, okay, this is about the landscape. It's not about people, but sometimes people in the picture can make a difference and add interest or scale. And depending on where your little zoom box is, I don't know if you can see the picture here, but these two backpackers kind of give a little interest and scale to this really almost desolate high altitude scene above timberline. They kind of make it interesting, I think. So adding people can help with scale. This is an iconic place to take pictures in Sedona. Everybody goes there to take a photo at this location along Oak Creek. And this would probably be just another one of those photos, but these people happen to be in a little kayak, and they kind of add some interest to it, make it a little different. I have no idea who they are. I did know the other people in the backpack photo. And then the last thing, make it your shot. Find a different spot. Don't take the same picture as every photographer. Half Dome is a cool thing to take pictures of. There are a gazillion pictures, and I don't think, I would never expect to do something as amazing as Ansel Adams or Mr. Long with his photos that we're going to see in February. I'm looking forward to that. But most of your pictures are going to be appreciated by you yourself and maybe a few other people. You're not going to be selling them most likely. So make them something you like. So, I like Half Dome, but I also like the scene in front of it here that is a little different than most people would get, because I had to walk there and it's off the beaten path. And it's not where all the photographers line up. And another couple of interesting views of Half Dome. It's the same thing, but in different views. This is from up near Glacier Point, looking at the side of Half Dome. And this is one that probably very few people are going to have, because it's you'd have to hike to Merced Lake and then hike up from Merced Lake to Vogasang to get this shot. But that is Half Dome right there in the background. Yeah. So just, make it your own picture. And then find your special places too. When you're, aside from taking different pictures of the iconic things, find your own special places. I do use a cell phone for photos also, because it's easy. And when there's plenty of light, you can get just as good of a photo of a large scene with good light with a cell phone as with a DSLR, especially the newer ones. I think that's a pretty cool picture of Wind Wolves Preserve. And I'd be curious if anyone else here has been to Wind Wolves Preserve. It's just over the hill and off the ridge route. As you come down on the other side of the ridge route, it's a big, big nature preserve. A lot of cool stuff there. So, find your own special places. And then, being in the right place at the right time is another important thing. And the way you do that is just be out, getting outside, shoot what you like, make it fun. I was out today at Chino Creek Wetlands. It's just a little educational wetlands park here in town. And I think I got a really nice picture that I'll share at the end of this. But, most of us are really not going to be pros. You want to plan ahead for when you're on a photography trip. If you know you're going specifically to take pictures of Joshua trees and rocks in Joshua Tree, or the sunset in Joshua Tree, or you're going to take fall color photos somewhere, take the right equipment, take your tripod, plan ahead, get all your lenses if you have them. But then the rest of the time, grab your camera and get out. If you see that interesting sky or a bird, look for the unexpected opportunities and then plan when you have a special opportunity. There's lots of different subjects, big and small. And I'll give you some examples of being in the right place in the right time in the next pictures. But I'd like to stop here and see if there's other comments, questions, or anything like that. Julianne, you're on mute.
Thank you. A couple of comments. I've been thinking a lot lately about personal history. I'm preparing a memorial and going through a lot of photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me want to put out there to our group here, perfection is not necessary. It's such a valuable thing to have your personal history in photographs. It is such a wonderful resource to go back through your own life and look at where you've been and the landscapes, and what it was like at that point. And I just one more thing comes to mind. There was a recent quote from the musician Yo-Yo Ma, the cellist, and he was talking about how we lose out when we stop being personal musicians and stop having an instrument in our homes, a piano or something else, and then just always be spectators and expect things to be perfect. I think it's important not to be perfect. I think it's important just to be there, like you're saying, get out there and, shoot for the beauty or shoot for your personal history, to document things that you're doing. I think that's really important. Keep it personal. It doesn't have to be stunning. It just needs to be you.
I totally agree. Well, and one way to do that and keep that online, I'm sure there's lots of ways to store your photos, but I use Google Photos, and everything from my phone goes into my Google Photos. And just today's my son's birthday, and I went back and found he's 42. I went back, and of course there weren't Google Photos back. No, he's 43. There weren't Google Photos back then, but I downloaded a bunch, put them in there, and I was able to just look up and find a couple pictures from his birthday year of him and share them with him and say happy birthday. So yeah, personal history and photos is important. And then this is being in the right place at the right time. I was camped up at Twin Lakes in Mammoth. I heard it was more early morning. I heard a bunch of commotion outside. So I got up and woke up. I thought, oh gosh, everybody's getting up because of this sunrise. It's so beautiful. So I grabbed my camera, ran out and took some pictures. And it was actually a bear in camp that everybody was excited about. I missed the bear, but I saw this beautiful sunrise. And it's not a perfect picture, but I like it. And then this is one I planned for. I was up at Mono Lake, and another one of my favorite places to go. I had a tripod, but it was evening and dark. And as you can see, there's a little bit of graininess in this picture, but I like the way the light shone on the water and just being in the right place at the right time. But in this case, it was planned ahead. This is another one that was totally unplanned. I was planning to take pictures of fall colors. We were up at Virginia Lakes, which is north of Mono Lake and up about 10,000 feet. And the trees were very pretty. I got some nice pictures of fall color aspens, and driving down the hill, you look down and we're above the rainbow, and the rainbow is covering Mono Lake and that whole valley, and was able to stop and shoot some pictures. So I was sort of prepared, but not expecting anything like this site that was just, the picture doesn't, give it it's catches it, but not great. And now this is another one that I planned ahead, and I don't have the equipment to get good night sky photographs. I'm sure many of you have seen pictures of the Comet Neo that came through in 2020 during the summer. Planned ahead, had my equipment, went with a photographer up to Trona Pinnacles, which is a really cool place up in the desert. If you haven't been there, cool place you ought to go to. It's not far. Got out in the night sky and took a photo of the pinnacles as kind of a backdrop for the comet, because it's much more interesting if you have something in the foreground. And this is not a spectacular photo of the comet. There's a lot that are more special, but I like this one because as you look up from the comet, you'll see the Big Dipper is right there. And that was the key to finding the comet. Was look for the Big Dipper, it's right below it.
Yeah.
And to be able to get both of them in the picture was what made me happy with it, even though there were lots of better pictures out there.
It's great.
So I want to thank everybody for your interest, and see if there's any other questions or anybody else that's a photographer or into photography or just takes a lot of cell phone pictures that you'd like to ask anything or make any comments.
On behalf of my friend Jackie Atkins, who's in attendance, and she is an experienced photographer, she does mention that camera manufacturers have classes. She knows that Canon does, so and she's found them to be helpful. So just something to bear in mind. And hi, Jackie, good to have you with us. But nice to know about those classes. And she confirmed the UC, the University of California, does have the Ansel Adams collection of work. So I'm not sure if they're up north at Berkeley, or the university's Museum of Photography is here in the Inland. It's in Riverside. So, which is a real gem. It's on the Main Street in downtown Riverside. But
it's worth a visit.
yeah, stunning photographs, Marianne. Just stunning. And I love Neo Eyes. You're very modest. I mean, I went to see it in Joshua Tree, and you just captured a beautiful photo of that, and everything else that you shared with us. Just stunning. Mono Lake, Convict Lake, one of my favorite places. Just stunning.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I would encourage you to go check out our website and our Facebook page, Sierra Club San Gorgonio Chapter Facebook. And really, if you are interested at all in protecting and conserving land here, if you're concerned about the development of warehouses here in our Inland Empire and the smog that we have as a result, if you're concerned about our deserts, climate change, whatever environmental justice concerns you have, I hope you will join us and get involved. And we are also starting up outings. If you go on our page, like I said, there's some outings up there again. So that's the fun stuff. And thank you for your attention and interest.
Yay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for
Thank you, Marianne.
all the beauty and the tips.
Stop sharing here so we can
Yeah.
go back to seeing everybody here.
Yes.
All right.
A perfect seminar, 25 people. Love
It
it.
got up to 29.
Yeah, it did good. Okay.
Yeah.
See, there's some
Wonderful.
things in the chat. And we are on time too. We're under an hour, which is
Good. Yay.
Thank you.
A note about the outings. Only one of our outings leaders has actually posted anything. That's Dave Melton. And he's doing lots of Joshua Tree hikes because this is the time of year to go out to Joshua Tree.
Right.
nice.
Right. So is he starting up in February?
No, this month.
This month? Oh
and
my
next
goodness.
month.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
he's posted, I don't know, at least 5 outings, I think. I
Mhm.
just
Oh my
looked.
goodness. It's great. That is fabulous.
And
Yeah.
Dave's a great leader.
Yes.
He's a national Sierra Club leader as well.
And I hope to have a camp out in Joshua Tree in early March, like I usually do. I've got
Oh, good.
some dates reserved, so I have
Wonderful.
to write it up and update my credentials for leading the Sierra Club
I
hike.
know. Yes.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it though. Fun. Very
Alright.
fun. Well, thank you, everyone. Just a wonderful, wonderful webinar
Thank you.
about techniques. You make me want to go out and buy a DSLR, you know?
It's been fun, it's
Yeah.
a great hobby for me.
Yeah. Get beyond the cell phone and back into something, I had some film cameras way back in the day.
Mhm.
I don't think I don't think you can even get film processed anymore, can you?
Yeah, you can still get it processed. I'm not sure where, but you can.
Hmm.
And
For
like I
price.
said, you can still get some pretty nice pictures of the cell phone. Let's see, I took this today.
Oh, nice.
At Chino Creek Wetlands.
Nice.
Out looking for birds and see what the wetlands looked out like after rain.
Look at the reflection.
Yeah, some nice reflections in this one, and I don't see any ducks, but there were some ducks. So
Well, it's such a beautiful, fresh day. What a great day to be out.
Yeah, it was. So,
So thank you, Mary Ann.
all right, I will say goodnight and night to everybody here, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
All
I
right,
love the
thank you, Mary Ann.
pictures.
Yeah.
They were
Thanks,
gorgeous.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. I'm going to take my leave. Beautiful
Yep.
job. Just a
too.
beautiful job. Thank
Thank
you. So take care.
Bye-bye. Happy holidays.
Yes, happy
See you all
holidays to
soon.
you. Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.